Hello, everyone. Welcome to Arizona Bill Watch for another lively discussion of important and controversial bills. I am your host, Jose Borrajero. Thank you for watching. There is a lot going on at the Capitol these days, so stay tuned because we have a fantastic show for you today. But before we do that, some housekeeping items. Number one, we would love for you to watch the whole show from beginning to end. However, you may also fast forward to the bills of your choice by using the handy chart that we have placed down below. Secondly, if you like what you see, please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. It means a lot to us. Third, it costs money to do what we do. So if you like what you see, you may contribute by going to our website, azpeopleslobbyist.com. So with all that out of the way, let's look at the first bill. House Bill HB 2117. Short title, Workers' Compensation, Occupational Disease Presumption. This bill was introduced by Representative Payne, and it's going to be in the House Military and Public Safety Committee on the 20th. And what this bill does very basically is that it presumes that when a firefighter develops cancer or certain kinds of cancers, it is presumed that it was caused by the occupation, by exposure to chemicals and so on, without having to go through all the rigmarole of trying to prove it, which is normally the case with workers' compensation cases. Is that about right, Archie?
Yes.
Right, yeah, I agree with that. It provides that the cancer in firefighters is covered under workman's comp, based upon the fact that if, whenever they were hired, they had a pre-employment examination which did not disclose that they had cancer at that time. Now, to me, the problem with that is, are they now going to require that pre-employment examinations specifically look for cancer? Because I don't think that was a matter that they did in pre-employment before.
No, they didn't. In fact, that's one of the things that the bill does. It changes.
No, it doesn't. This bill doesn't require that the pre-employment search for cancer.
Right.
It just says that if the pre-employment physical did not disclose.
And, yeah, and the examination did not result in a cancer diagnosis.
And what's the difference? I mean, you would think that a pre-employment would check for cancer as well. You know, they probably check for heart disease and diabetes and all kinds of stuff. So why not check?
I mean, but they run all kinds of tests on your heart and your breathing and that kind of stuff. But as far as I know, I have never known of a pre-employment examination that specifically searched to see if the potential employee suffered from cancer.
Now, with that being said, all exams don't always result in the or checking for everything that you want, because that's almost impossible. But what I would say to that is, if the person is or has been a smoker in the past, then I think that would be more relevant about searching for a cancer diagnosis.
Right. But regardless of how it's done or what's done, there's a reason why this will be a specific thing. It's not normal to check for cancer. You're right. But we know that there's a high potential for developing cancer when you experience smoke from these fires that, they have all kinds of bad chemicals being burned. So then it makes sense to find out that this person actually had this cancer before, so that we can say, well, that was a pre-existing condition, we're not going to cover that or whatever. Or say, no, he was free from that kind of cancer, so that it will be covered.
I totally agree with that. I just don't think this bill requires that pre-employment exams specifically search
to maybe you should talk to
whether or not
Mr.
an
Payne.
employee has cancer.
Maybe you should talk to Mr. Payne and ask him to do an amendment.
Right. I did.
But there's another thing about this bill, Archie, that you keep on harping on, and you're right. This bill has a
Legislative intent.
legislative intent clause in it, which, Archie, you've been
Oh.
harping on that for some time.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's absolutely necessary that if you're going to be, as a member of the legislature, if you're going to introduce a bill to become law, you need to set forth what it is that the intent of the legislature in passing this bill. And the reason that I say that, as a former attorney in Southern California, that question came up. It's amazing at how many times that question came up in cases pending before the court. Either the court brought it up or an attorney brought it up and saying, well, what was the intent of the legislature in enacting this bill? So it does come up, and it's important that the
So
legislature
we
sets
agree,
forth what
we
their
agree on
intent
that.
is.
How about,
Well, and with the legislative intent, my thought in the flaw in the legislative intent is that it intends that reoccurring cancers are eligible for coverage. Now, having not read section 23901, does that mean that as long as there was,
okay,
that
well,
it was a result
we were not
of-
discussing the merit of
Right,
this one. We were
right.
discussing why it's a good idea to have an
Right.
intent.
right, and I agree with,
So we're all in agreement then.
I'm in agreement, yes. Mhm.
House Bill HB 2173. Short title, County Aid School District Revisions. This bill is going to be in the House Education Committee on the 30th of January. Introduced by Representative Pingerelli. And what it does is it determines how to compute county aid from common school districts not within a high school district. Now, there's a lot of nuances here, and Archie, you've been looking into that.
Yeah, I reviewed this bill pretty good. And basically what he's saying is we're going to raise your taxes.
Yeah, that's what it appears to me.
And the other thing that he says is we're going to use school trust funds in order to help pay for this. Well, of course, that's a violation of the Enabling Act. Because under the Enabling Act, you may only use those funds from the school trust fund to support common schools. Now you get into the question of what constitutes as common school. Well, by statute in Arizona, a common school is grades 1 through 8 and sometimes grade 9, depending upon the subject matter to be taught. And if there is a question about, well, they intended high schools to include high school as an indication of a common school, then of course, if that's what their intent is here, which it doesn't appear to be, then that violates the Arizona Constitution, which differentiates between a kindergarten, a common school, a high school, a normal school, and industrial schools. The Constitution provides for differentiation for all of those schools.
and it does state in the bill, not within a high school district.
Right, but it also prohibits, if you look at the code, it prohibits any of those funds to be used for a common school, and yet the Enabling Act specifically says these funds will be used for a common school. Doesn't say high school, doesn't say kindergarten, says a common school. The Enabling Act was done in 1910, and in 1910, a common school at federal law was grades 1 through 6. By statute in Arizona, it's grades 1 through 8, and sometimes
Well,
grade 9.
now, how many of the people voting on this will have read the Constitution?
Probably none,
Okay.
and even less of them will have read the Enabling Act.
Okay,
But you see,
so,
this is where Legislative Council has got to step up and do their job, and they're just not doing their job.
okay, but we're not going to change that at this point. So
No.
we're going to be looking at the merit of the bill, and overall, is it a good bill or a bad bill?
To me, it's a very bad
Bad
bill.
bill.
Very bad bill.
You're using money you don't have the authority to use.
Okay,
So are we all going to say no on this?
right.
Okay.
No.
House Bill HB 2322. Short title, Peace Officers Discipline Modification. It's going to be heard in the House Military Affairs and Public Safety Committee on the 29th, and it was introduced by Representative Payne. Basically, what it does is that it modifies the way hearings on appeals are conducted to increase the fairness to the employees involved. And the employees involved in this case here would be police officers. So I think it's a way for the policeman to get a fair shake. What do you think, Archie?
It does, yeah. I mean, it gives the law enforcement merit system the authority to review a disciplinary action taken
Correct.
against an employer. It's not unheard of, as I'm sure you're all aware, that an employer may have some kind of a grudge or something against an employee, and they can use a disciplinary action in order to get back at the employee. And this allows the employee, on the law enforcement anyway, their merit system council to go in and review that disciplinary action and determine whether or not, one, there was any justification for the disciplinary action, and if there was, then to find out what the evidence was that supported it, or find out whether there was any evidence against it, and then to modify it. So, yeah, I think this is a good bill.
And as usually, you described that so eloquently that I'm a yes on this bill.
Well, I was a yes before he described it so eloquently.
I'm glad my eloquence convinced the two of you. Yes.
No, as
No,
I
we were
said,
both on.
I was already in favor of it before your
Yes.
eloquency came into
Now
play.
you're trying to make me feel bad today.
Well,
No,
well, yeah. House Bill HB 2436. Short title, State Contracts, Foreign Adversary Prohibition. This bill is going to be heard in the House Government Committee on the 31st. It was introduced by Representative Diaz, and what it does, it prevents a cover company from bidding or having proposals, etc., on government contracts. And it is quite a lengthy bill with descriptions of this, that, and the other, but the important thing here is that it refers to covered countries, and these are certain countries that we deem not to be friendly to us. And it does go ahead and mention what those are: China, Cuba, Russia, etc. So, what do you think of that, Archie?
Well, I think Gloria better go first on this one, because I'll tell you, my comments on it you're not going to like.
okay, and I'm not sure, all I can say on this bill is I'm a no on it. There's too many bills out there that's addressing all of this at different levels. But the two things that stuck out to me in this are there are no other reasonable options for the procurement of specific goods, and it goes on. And to me, this is opening up a door that somebody can just say that, well, we have to accept this contract because there's no other option. So that opens up that door, in my opinion. And if a bid or an offer submitted for a state contract does not include a disclosure, then if it doesn't include the disclosure that there is no, what's the word I want, that there's no conflict, that they can submit this form later. And I have a problem with that, because if there's no conflict, it should be presented up front and not, and that's it.
Okay, so Archie, what's your take on it?
I think this bill is a joke. I mean, it has to be a joke. They can't possibly.
Well, how come I'm
be
not
serious.
laughing?
What?
How come I'm not
Well,
laughing?
because you haven't heard my elaborate explanation here. So they require that if you're going to enter into a contract with a state agency, then you have to provide a statement that your company is not involved with any company that's headquartered in or controlled, and I think there's a total of 8 countries that are, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're involved with those, so that any of that stuff goes back to the proceeds of the contract is controlled by or goes back to those countries, then you can't enter into the contract. Let me ask you, when was the last time you went to the supermarket and bought any food processed that didn't have something to do with China or one of these 8 countries?
Right.
You just cannot find it in the United States. Now, compare that also with the fact that Saudi Arabia owns 7,000 acres of land.
Okay, we have a different bill regarding the land thing.
All right,
Let's stick to the contents of this bill.
I am
well,
sticking.
go
I'm
ahead.
talking about the inconsistency of this bill with other bills. I mean, with other laws that we have. We permit foreign countries to come in and buy our land, to buy our businesses and run them. But now you say, if you're run by an American citizen and you have some contact with one of those companies run by a foreign government, you can't enter into a state contract.
When
That's
all of
got to
our-
be a joke.
When everything,
Absolutely has to be a joke.
All right, so,
no.
no and no.
No.
All right.
What
We
about
don't,
you?
we don't like this bill, folks.
Okay. So are you a no too?
Right.
Correct, okay.
Oh,
House Bill HB 2442, School Immunizations Exclusions. This bill will be in the House Health and Human Services Committee on the 29th, and it was introduced by Representative Montenegro. And what it does is very simply adds to the list of immunizations that are not required for school attendance. And when that and what it does add is that unless it has been actually approved by the FDA, in other words, if it's just one of these administrative temporary permission that they do, that those are not, you're not required to take those. It's aimed mostly probably at the COVID thing. But regardless, if it hasn't been really studied and determined that it's safe and effective, it should not be introduced into a child's bloodstream. So I am in agreement with that.
It's the emergency use, because that's what they always
Yeah,
use.
okay.
Is that, that the child does not need to have the immunization if it was deemed to be an emergency use. I am in agreement with this bill. I don't think it goes far enough, but, and it is all centered on the COVID-19. And so anyway, I'm in
But
agreement with this.
regardless of, yes, it is aimed at the COVID, but I'm sure that somewhere along the line, there's going to be other so-called immunizations of substance, by substances that are approved only on an emergency basis.
Right, well, it's also the human papillomavirus, I can't pronounce it. But anyway, I think that one, and I meant to look it up, I think that one was the one for young kids getting cancer, to help them stop getting cancer in the future. And so that is not going to be, that's in the bill already. Those two are not going to be a requirement.
well, if you look at the education code, it provides that the Department of Education shall prescribe what immunizations are a must for a student to
Right.
have in entering school. This is just a statement saying, well, okay, but here's one that they don't have to mandate that you take.
Right.
And that's all this is. And so I think from that standpoint, it's a reaffirmation of the Parents' Bill of Rights, and it's a good bill.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're in agreement, all of us, that
Yes.
this is a good bill.
3,
House Bill HB 2501, short title, Community College Districts County Removal. This bill is going to be heard in the House Education Committee on the 30th. It was introduced by Representative Biasuki, and it very simply states that if you have a community college district where that encompasses two counties that or more actually, that one of the counties may choose to withdraw, and for that they have to hold an election and so on and so forth. I don't see why they would want to do that, and it's not clear from the bill, which is actually quite convoluted. I don't know what the advantage is for them to withdraw from the district.
I don't know either. In reading the bill, it's not clear to me why one county would want to withdraw, but it raises a number of issues. If you have a community college district that spans 2 or more counties, then one or more of them, by 10% of the population, can vote to remove their county from that community college district. That then may leave the county with no community college district. So if they're not part of the community college district and they have no other one in the county, do their students then, who would then be going to that community college, are they going to be required to pay a higher fee because they're no longer part of the community college district?
Who knows?
In
The bill
addition-
doesn't, the bill doesn't address any of that.
I know.
Right, but
I
these
know.
are questions.
I know, and that's why we think that I don't see the purpose of this bill.
And this is
The
where
way
the,
it's- the way it
this
was
is where
written.
the legislative intent should have been put on here.
You remove from the county from the community college district, but you don't remove the county from having the expenses of any bonds or any debts that the community college
Well,
district
it
involved.
does say, and that was my question, the taxable property in the removed county remains subject to taxes for the payment of any in debt.
It
Well-
does.
well,
for
yeah.
That was in, you know, in.
Well, otherwise you'll be defaulting on that debt. So
Right.
that makes sense. What
And
doesn't make,
passing it off to another county.
what doesn't make sense is why withdraw in the first place. I don't see a compelling reason for that. So this is not a bill that warrants, I don't know. I don't like it.
I don't like it.
No, I don't like it. No, not clear. It needs to be clarified.
House Bill HB 2552, housing grants, military, veterans, homeless. This bill is going to be heard in the House Military Affairs and Public Safety Committee on the 29th. It was introduced by Representative Payne. And it is kind of a funny bill. It's kind of hard to understand, but it does reward veterans for their service by carving out something special for them. However, it also includes military transitional housing, which may be okay, veteran housing, may be okay, affordable housing, and homeless housing, without actually telling us, who the homeless are. So this may be something that's good for the veterans, but well, Archie, you have something to say about that,
I
don't you?
always have something to say about bills that I reviewed,
Well, that's why we call on you.
I think the concept of this bill is probably good, but I think it needs to go back to Mr. Payne and Legislative Council, and I think they need to do some really hard looking at this bill and working on it. If you look at it, it basically appears to be a bill that's going to give preference, or almost exclusive preference, to companies that are veteran-owned, whether profit or nonprofit, to build these houses. And it's not limited to just houses for veterans. It includes housing for homeless people. And what does a homeless people include? That includes people who are walking across our border. They are homeless, and so we now have to pay taxes in order to provide them with a house to live in. Not only does it have to be a house to live in, but it also has to have all of these new fangled ideas like wind power and solar power and different water types
So
of
the
situations.
bottom line there is that if we want to reward veterans for their service and give them a special treatment, that's fine, but it should be just that. And this bill does not limit itself to that.
No, and it
And-
goes on, if you look at it on 41 399 395503B, it goes manufacture and construct renewable building
That's-
materials. What's a renewable building material? or innovative building material. What is that? What's innovative energy? What's SUBER corks? I've never heard of Suber corks. Graphene supercapacitor batteries. I mean, you know,
That-
we got to use all of this stuff, but nobody knows what they are.
Right.
Well, I wouldn't say nobody knows. They apparently they know, but the general public
well,
doesn't know.
Well, who even knows if they know what they're told to
So
put
my
on?
take on it is that the idea may be good, but it needs to be adjusted so that the purpose of it is what it's intended to be, and not
It needs to be, have some
Right.
limitations
a
on
free
it.
for all, and all of these restrictions as to what materials can be used and what type of housing it is, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So the way it is written, I don't like it.
Correct.
No, it's a no.
House Bill HB 2645, short title, Foster Children High School Transfer. It will be in the House Education Committee on the 30th, and this bill was introduced by Representative Jones, and it applies only to grades 9 through 12, and it has, what it does is that when it comes to foster children, they do tend to move from one household or to one district to another. And what this does is that it guarantees that those credits go with the child as opposed to having to start all over again. At least that's the way I understand the bill, which I think is a good thing, because we need for them to keep those credits because they count towards college admission.
Mm-hmm.
So, you agree with that, Gloria?
I agree with this bill, and when the foster kids should be treated equally with all other kids, and between 9 and 12, to my understanding, that's the grades that college credits start in order for you to graduate. So I think I'm in favor of this bill.
Well, this bill has another provision in it, and that is that it says that the foster child transferring from one school to the other, the school to which they transfer cannot say, well, we're not going to allow your credits because we have something else, and so you have to take this extra course. And this bill provides that no, the transferring to school cannot impose additional requirements for the child to take courses that they haven't already taken. They get full credit.
Which I think is a good thing.
Oh, I think that's a good thing, yes.
Yes.
So I think we're all in agreement that this is a good bill.
Well, yes, except that I think it needs to apply to from grades 1 through grades 12 and not just grade 9 through 12.
Yeah, well, it's my understanding that when it comes to actual credits, the only thing that counts for
Is-
college is the 9 through 12. But you're right.
You're trying to graduate from high school without attending grades 1 through 8.
Right. I think that probably should be extended to all grades, not just 9 through 12.
I do too, yes.
But other than that, it's a good bill.
We're all in agreement.
Senate Bill SB 1148, short title, Income Tax Rebate Seniors. This bill is going to be in the Senate Finance Committee, Senate Finance and Commerce Committee on the 29th, introduced by Senator Kern. And what it does very simply, it issues a one-time individual income tax rebate to seniors who paid Arizona income tax. So if you paid income tax and you're a senior, and I think seniors like from 50 on.
55, I think,
or
is what they
55,
say.
yeah. If you're a senior like like me and like Archie, are we senior?
Yeah,
No,
we're
I'm
all-
not. I'm only 39.
I'm older than the
I'm
hill.
like
so-
Jack Benny. I'm not going to get older than 39.
Anyway, I am salivating at the prospect of getting this huge tax rebate from the state government. Folks, it's not going to be that much no matter what. But it is a one-time thing, and I suppose it's a good idea because people on fixed income, which a lot of senior citizens are, people on fixed income are hurt the most by this type of inflation that we have been having. So, Archie, do you have anything to add to that?
Of course, I always have something to add. This bill is too vague, it's unclear. Why is it limited to full-time residents, 55 years of age or older? Why wouldn't it apply to everyone? It only applies to tax year ending December 31st, 2022. Why not the other years? And what's the basis for determining that we need a rebate? Did we have excess income and therefore we need to give it back to the taxpayers? If you're going to give it back to the taxpayers, then 55 and older are not the only ones that paid taxes.
Well, also, it does have a amount of, I think, 68,000 or less.
68,000
Yeah.
less what?
That
The amount of
that
dollars to
your
be
in-
rebated? Or,
No, that your income is $68,000 or less, something like that. I had-
Yeah, well, it has a top limit because they don't want
Yeah.
to be giving a tax break to a millionaire or
But
something.
then I'd have to challenge that if you go over to section M, paragraph 1, Arizona small business taxable income. Now, Arizona small business, is that an individual? And then they get to make a claim for taxable
Yeah,
refund?
that is a flaw in the bill that I noticed. If it's going to be given to senior citizens, let's give it to senior citizens. Let's not do businesses because then you run into all kinds of.
See, when we get back to my statement that this bill is just too vague and unclear. So it needs to go back and they need to do something with it. As it is, I mean, the concept may be good, but the implementation of it is not so good.
Right.
So we have a situation where we don't like this bill, not because we don't like the concept, but because it's vague and not clear enough. Correct?
Correct. Mhm.
Yep.
This brings to an end this week's edition of Arizona Bill Watch. Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, please make sure you tell your friends, relatives, and anyone else you know. And make sure you tune in next week for another fantastic edition of Arizona Bill Watch.